Opening quotation.
Reading time begins. Reading time ends. Time begins. Thirty seconds used. One minute used. One minute, 30 seconds used.
Why so serious? A quote used by one of the greatest villains of all time, the Joker, who is a dialogue-based character that is the epitome of evil and just being deranged. But why is he a dialogue-based character? Well, because he does everything for himself. He does not care about others and what they think or what they want to do. He simply does what he wants because he wants to. And that leads us, what is the opposite of this? And that leads us to today's quotation. My goal is not to have a dialogue. My goal is to solve this madness, by Ali Abu Awad. Now, we can interpret this to mean we have to move the spotlight off of ourselves to have our voice be more effective. And we can condense this to mean activism is for others, not ourselves. And we can take this to two key points of true activism is rarely seen. And my second point, activism for self-elation. First, true activism is rarely seen. We can see this through my two key examples of Claudette Colvin and Fort Mose. First, Claudette Colvin. Now, she is what Rosa Parks was before Rosa Parks actually did it. But the reason that you don't know her name is because she was a 17-year-old pregnant girl that did not fit the quote-unquote schema of what America thought an activist should be. Her skin was too dark to be an activist. But her effects and her impacts of her actions actually did push Rosa Parks to do what she did, which started the bus boycott and sparked it nationwide. And you can see this further contextualized through my second key point of Fort Mose. Now, everybody knows about how the slaves escaped to the South and followed the North Star. But what many didn't know is that slaves actually escaped to the South also. Florida, Fort Mose is in Florida, which was colonized by the Spanish, which means the American government could not touch these slaves and they were safe. And these people that helped them and guided them to the South to find Fort Mose, well, we just don't know their names. We do know about Harriet Tubman, one of the greatest Underground Railroad, just people in general to help lead the Black people. But we don't know about the people that helped these people to the South. But their actions still mattered and their activism was still important. And it is something that we should all model ourselves after, of not being seen, but our actions holding true. Now, the Joker, everything he does is for self-elation, and that's exactly why he is the epitome of evil. And we can see this further contextualized through my two key examples of Donald Trump and T.D. Jakes. First, Donald Trump. Now, TikTok was banned in 2024 and the whole entire nation went crazy. What are we going to do without TikTok? Well, go read a book. But just because Donald Trump saw this as an opportunity to elate himself, he said, well, I can change this. Because I will be the president, I can have TikTok be unbanned. And he knew the Americans would praise him for it. And this is a form of activism for self-elation. And vice versa, the same thing goes for my second point of T.D. Jakes. Now, T.D. Jakes is a famous turned infamous pastor of a megachurch. Megachurches in general just use the image of God to push their own selfish agendas. Him in particular, he was caught in a Diddy party, and his name has been smeared all over the media, showing him for what he truly is, a villain that uses God and a church to push his own narratives and his own success. This brings us back to today's quotation. My goal is not to have a dialogue. My goal is to solve this madness. And we interpreted this to mean our activism is for others. And we saw this through my two key points of activism is rarely seen and activism for self-elation. And we saw this through my four examples of Claudette Calvin and Fort Mose and Donald J. Trump and T.D. Jakes. Now, we can see in my second point, they were evil, which is similar to the Joker. Everything he did was for himself, which made him evil. So try not to focus on yourself and focus on others in your actions rather than just your name. So I agree with today's quotation.